My name's Jeff Safaya here with Kevin Molnaric. It's Not Just Insurance podcast. And today we have one of the most motivated, determined, successful agents out there and farmers that I call my good friend that I've actually never met in person, but someone who is inspirational. I'm so glad that she's on our podcast today. LaTasha Baucham out in Bradenton, Florida. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's
Yeah,
going to be
thanks,
fun. I'm looking
LaTasha.
forward to it. No problem.
So, LaTasha, I want to get into your background, but before we do that, I'd like to just tell a quick story about the first time we spoke on the phone, because I think that kind of tees up um, a little bit about you and your determination, your ambition. Typically, when I have new agents call me, I work with a lot of new agents out there. They'll call me 3 to 4 weeks before they open up their agency. And they say, "Hey, Jeff, I need two producers. Farmers is requiring it, or Allstate's requiring it in order to open up my book of business." LaTasha calls me, this is 3, 4 years ago,
About 4 years ago.
7 months before she opened, and goes, "Hey, Jeff, I'm LaTasha with Allstate, but I'm transitioning to become a farmer's agent, opening up a book in 7 months and need to hire." I'm like, "Okay, well, do you need 1, 2, 3? Congratulations.
Right.
We can help you."
Yeah.
She goes, "Oh no, like I'll take 6, 10, maybe even more."
Wow.
So, she just had a totally different mindset, totally different vision. And sure enough, 4 years later, everyone's talking about her
Yeah,
across farmers.
that's awesome. Well, not even the number, but just even starting 7 months early
Right.
is, a testimony to you too. That's fantastic.
Right.
It's just, you see it, you know it, you know how to you understand it's a numbers game.
It absolutely is a numbers game. And, that comes from kind of working the background I have, right? I have a finance degree. So I started in the world of finance, but I worked for, like Jeff mentioned, I worked for Allstate for 12 years, and 9 of those was spent in the finance department, kind of modeling goals, looking at agent success and things of that nature. So kind of getting the big picture from the corporate standpoint. But the last 3 years of my Allstate career, I was a field sales leader. So I was working directly with agents, and you pretty quickly see why the ones who are successful,
Yeah.
and the ones who are not, why they aren't. And so it gave me the opportunity to kind of take things away from all those great agents that I work with and model my agency after what they did that worked. There are certain things that work, and investing in people are one of those things that work. The one thing that I got out of that role when I worked in it, when I decided to make the jump myself, is most people see staffing as an expense. I see it as an investment. I invest in things that make me money, and the things that don't, I don't put my money there. So marketing and staffing have always been those things that I consider are investments, not expenses. So it definitely helped get off to a fast start, but I got
You
the pleasure of
disagree with
working with
that, right,
you.
Kevin? You're totally
Oh,
opposite.
yeah. No, actually, I would say that most of my talks that I've done is I say nearly the exact line. I just
Yeah.
say most agents look at staff as an expense, and what it really is a growth initiative, which is the same,
Absolutely.
investing in your growth in your agency, and it pays off. And that's one of the reasons why, we created that ROI calculator. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've had a chance to see that yet on the dashboard on Ideal Traits, but it
Yeah.
just shows and it maps out to the agent who says, "I can't afford it." And it's like, no, you really sound so cliche. You can't afford not to, but
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
the truth. In investing in yourself and in your business is critical, and it pays off.
It really does. I mean, it takes, if you can find the right hire, the investment takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Right? Because you not only get them, they want to recommend their friends. And so it's a good strategy. It's a good business strategy to invest in people. You can't build your entire business around you.
No.
You have to build it around your team. And if you
Right.
build it around your team, then you can continue to develop and grow them, so you can inevitably grow your business. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong, in my personal opinion, because then it relies too much on you.
Right. So what a great opportunity to see it from a sales leader's perspective. And you mentioned something. You said not only the things that you should copy and emulate of the top producers, but also what not to do. So can you share a little bit about what you learned from the agents who, they weren't successful, they were stagnant, they weren't growing. Were there any common themes that you saw within those agencies and realized you did not want to, copy that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things was those agents tend not to invest in marketing, right? You can get good people and lose them if you can't help them fill the funnel. So it's not necessarily that you have bad staff, it just could be you have bad processes. So that's one of the things that I watched closely as well, was what agents had great processes. And the other thing, how that translates over to your staffing, because you can't let your team determine the measure of success. They want to be held accountable. They want to know what means success in this agency. So the accountability piece, if it's missing, whether you have good employees or bad employees, it's going to be one of those things. You're not going to be successful if they don't know what they're being held accountable to, from quoting to sales to all the expectations. I mean, you can't leave that up to the staff, in my opinion, to kind of interpret on their own. And that's one of the things I've seen in agencies that weren't as successful as others. Their staff sometimes didn't know what they were to be doing from day to day. Their roles were never consistently and concisely defined. And so they wanted more structure. And oftentimes those agents had high turnover. I didn't want that. I wanted, if I'm hiring more people, I want it to be because we're growing. Now there's some turnover. You can't avoid it,
Right.
but you can certainly minimize it. And that's what, one of the things that I took away when I decided to become an agent is it's costly to have to continue to turn over support staff, and it's bad business practice to not have a structure laid out for them when you get a good candidate. So I made sure that not only I tried to hire the right people, but I also put them in a position to succeed. And so they knew exactly what they needed to do to be successful.
Right. A common misconception, and you hit on that, was that staff want to be held accountable. And, you hear too many agents and they say, no, I don't want to micromanage. I don't want to be over their shoulder. I want to hire people that can do it all on their own. But in reality, deep down, and they might not even understand the staff themselves, but they do want to be held accountable because they want to know, as you're mentioning, like, what are the goalposts? Like, what is my role here?
Mhm.
And to know that they're doing a good job or not. So if you hire someone, you could hire a great A player. And if you just set them all to themselves, they're going to leave. So
Absolutely.
you have to have expectations. And not only that, follow through and follow up, held accountable. And then they know they're hitting the goals that are expected.
And that comes also
Absolutely.
with career development, right? Culture, career development, compensation. I think
Mhm.
LaTasha does a great job with all three of those things. And LaTasha, um, your background, right? You know, folks from Allstate know about you, and now a lot of people from Farmers, of course. But the viewers who don't know too much about you, can you go into, I guess, the day you were born and waking up, and do you want to become an insurance, get into the industry, or walk us through that, like the first opportunity and, you know, um, how it went from there?
No, I actually did not go into it, thinking, oh, I'm going to be this rock star. I'm going to go into insurance agency. So actually was the furthest thing from my mind. I actually, my bachelor's degree is in finance, my master's degree is in finance with a specialization in derivatives and hedge fund pricing. I had no intention of
That
becoming
sounds
an insurance
awesome.
agent. So, I went to undergraduate in Tallahassee. I got my at Florida A&M. Moved to London 2 years later. I got my MBA in London.
Yeah.
Moved back to the States. I ended up working for Allstate. I decided I didn't want to go the investment route of, you know, that's just too much being responsible for people's money. And I don't want to make a wrong decision. So I didn't go the investment route that I was initially going to do. But I end up doing kind of the corporate finance and things, and still getting the itch for the finance and the data junkie in Allstate. So I did that for the 9 years and kind of wanted to branch out a little bit more, because one of the things that I saw as a finance person on the inside is I was always curious as to, I don't think the numbers always tell the story, right? You can have an agent who was producing at an extremely high level. And then you just look at the numbers, you can say that, okay, the production is down. But it never answers the why. It's always easy in finance to say increase production. Okay, but how do you increase production? Why is production down in the first place? What the numbers in finance don't tell you is that they may be down 3 staff. They may, have just hired somebody and they're new. There could be turnover. There's a lot of things that those numbers didn't necessarily tell. So I was curious as to, okay, what's the real story behind the numbers? So that's how I ended up kind of transitioning over to the sales side. I had no intentions of becoming an agent, but the more I worked with agents, the more I did it, the more I helped them train their staff and kind of, get the gratification for when they got no bonus and no award trips to here's what these numbers mean. Here's how you move these numbers. These are your levers. Because they do it very well from finance. And so I figured it's probably something I want to try my hand at. Maybe I could be good at it. So
So how long in as a sales leader did you decide, like, you know what, like I can do this? And I'm sure you're showing them the numbers and you're looking at what the possibilities are. And so your financial brain's ticking. And so how long in until you decided, like, I'm going to do this?
it was 3 years in, 3 years in, 3 years as a sales leader. And I was like, you know what? I think I want to make the transition. Yeah, it's 3 years.
Weren't you with a friend from Allstate too in the beginning, going into business with farmers? Was that?
Yes, I had a business partner in the beginning, Myra. She decided to do other things, but yeah. So it's
That's
just me now.
So then when you started, did you start from scratch or did you buy a book or?
I started scratch. I'm a scratch girl. I like the build. I like the build process. So I started scratch.
Kevin can get along
Okay.
with you there.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Because you said she was looking to put 7 people in right away. So how many ended up take us to the first day now. What'd that look like?
First day we started with 8. We
Wow.
started with 8 people the first day. Um, Very exciting, but it was just kind of getting everybody into the process of, okay, here's what our culture is: high expectation, high performance, high reward. That's our culture. And so
Ooh,
making sure
that's
they understand
oh
that.
yeah.
And then we just push that forward. It's on the wall in the back. Nobody can be confused about what our agency is about. If you come to one, you're not one where it doesn't mean that money doesn't mean, probably not the agent that you should work for.
Right.
So it's just not the culture that I build. And so because I know if done right, it can change not only my life but my support staff's life. And
Yeah.
so even now that we're transitioning to Jacksonville, I have 3 agents that work for me that have moved already. They're moving because they didn't want to leave the job, so they're moving to Jacksonville.
Wow.
So yeah, but we started with 8, and the first day was setting the culture, just making sure everybody was comfortable knowing that, okay, this is kind of our grace period. Let's figure it out. Who we're gonna be, how we're gonna do it, what makes sense from a marketing standpoint, from a team standpoint. How are we gonna do this? We know what the goal is. How do we get there? So to the first day was chaotic to say the least, but because I hire, ironically enough, I prefer people with no insurance experience. So none of my staff had any insurance experience on day one. So that in itself was a treat. You have to get them comfortable with what you just taught them in training class and be ready to go ahead and get on the floor and do it. I always telling you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Let's hit
Oh,
these phones. So, but yeah, it was chaotic is the best way to put day one.
well, you said a lot of great words. I mean,
I feel like I could run a marathon right now.
yeah, right. Like comfortable being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Says that you're just looking to grow and
Absolutely.
get better. That's so awesome. One other thing, a good buddy of ours, which we won't say his full name. Jeff
Okay.
tends to go a little bit extra, but our buddy Jacob, he just took
Oh,
over a
no, I'm just
position
kidding.
of CEO of a company. And so I was talking to him and I said, so all right, so what do you do day one? And the first thing he said is culture. Establish the culture. And it's so key. So they know. I mean, right? It's like knowing the goalpost, who we are, what we represent. And I did miss one. I've got high expectations and then I got high reward. I missed the middle one.
High expectation, high performance, high reward.
Yeah. High performance. That's awesome. Well, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, those are setting the bar right.
Set the bar.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And anybody that comes in, because your culture can be one of those silent killers, right? It can damage you in ways that you sometimes can't recognize, right? Even if you have good people and a bad culture,
Yeah.
you can run your good people away. And if you have a good culture, but you let bad people in your culture, then everyone thinks that, okay, now I can do it. But no one is bigger than the culture. And that's the thing you have to establish day one, that if you don't fit the culture, it doesn't matter how much you produce, you can't stay here. You just can't.
Are these people listening? This is threads of wisdom. Where do you learn? Who are you learning from? Are you
That's what
books
I
or
was going to ask.
podcasts? Like,
Mentors, even like back at Allstate, then to Farmers, to
yeah.
now you're doing independent. I mean, you're covering all areas in this industry.
Yeah. Well, I try and make sure I lead by example, right? So I'm not doing anything or asking them to do anything that I'm not representative of myself. So I try and listen to a lot of podcasts. I try and read a lot. I try and stay abreast of things, but again, it just goes back to, when you at the Worlds of Allstate, you look at name, I'm sure you'll recognize it, Ted Todd. There's certain things, that successful agents embody. And it's implemented from the top down, not the bottom up. And so the ones who couldn't manage to find their footing, they didn't establish those things. It was almost like they were afraid to say certain things to their staff. Like they became held hostage to their staff. And that's one reason why I hired so many employees, is I don't want to be held hostage by any one employee. If you decide that you want to walk, that's fine. I support it. Next man up, next
Right.
woman up. Again, no one's bigger than the culture. So
And then
everybody's not fit for me though.
for
I
you, I
understand.
mean, it sounds like she's businesswoman through and through, right? But
Yeah.
when did you, when you were a field sales leader, on your third year, but like when did you start having the mindset, like, I want to open up my own agency? And then the adjustment going into Farmers, like, it sounds like you're ready day one. Obviously, you reached out to me 7 months before. You're on point with your recruiting. You knew what you were doing, but was there any hiccups or things that you like didn't expect, or when did it all settle in that you felt like you had your mojo?
There's always hiccups, right? You never everything never goes as planned. I mean, we lost one guy in the second day, so there are always hiccups. You try to plan for them, but you can't. Um, this is where ideal traits is very important, because you get to weed out what people are going to do versus what they say they're going to do, right? You have two different dynamics. They can say what they're going to do, but your ideal traits, those are kind of your natural tendencies. And so the one thing that I didn't capture on the first go round, but I made sure I did each time after that, was I didn't give that motivation under pressure the attention that it deserved, because that right there is very indicative of your self motivation. Not what someone else says of you, not what you think of yourself, but what your natural tendency to do is. And when I start going through the turnover of my staff and I'm looking at who left, why they left, I pull up their ideal traits profile, and they all had something in common. Every one of them had a motivation score under pressure of 50 and less. So if it's not above 50, I don't hire them. I don't care how good the resume is. I have enough large sample size that I can say that this number is probably the most indicative number of all the numbers on the personality, is that motivation under pressure. Everything else I feel like I can teach. I can't teach you work ethic. I can't teach you self-motivation. And I didn't give that number the attention it deserved with the first round or two of employees and hires. But I had to step back and go, okay, I thought it was a good employee, a good hire. What am I missing? So when I went back through the profile, that was the common denominator. It was 40 or less. This was 50 or less.
100%, because the persuasiveness, I mean, sure, if it's really low, they're more introverted, but there's still room teach them how to build rapport and communicate with others. And that persuasiveness, you can see, goes up when they reassess themselves after a couple of years working for someone like you. But that motivation, that is challenging. Kevin's always told me that from day one.
Day one.
I mean, under a 60, I'll be like,
now,
what about a
didn't you tell
58?
LaTasha that when she called you? 7
She had it all figured out. I mean, she
Could have
was,
saved me some heartache, Kevin.
Yeah.
You could have saved me some heartache,
Yeah.
Kevin.
I mean, easiest sale ever. And you know what? She is 8 people starting out.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I assumed that was my problem. I assumed that she was just looking for 1 or 2.
You know what assumptions do?
Assumptions are
The
terrible.
worst.
The worst. Now, LaTasha, I almost bring it up every time I'm talking to an agent because and that brings up a good point here, LaTasha. When new agents reach out to you, like, hey, I already got my staff in place, I already got 2 people, and then they want to move on to a different topic. Are you like, well, 2 people is good, but why not 3 if they're good? Why not 4?
It's what are you trying to accomplish? There's the thing. You can be a business owner or you can be an agent. I never wanted to be an agent. I wanted to be a business owner.
Yeah.
So if I'm not going to be an agent, I have to find good agents. So in order to find it, but that's the question you have to ask. If you may be okay with 2, if you want, but then most time they say, no, I want to grow my business. Okay, then you can't count you as one of the agents. You want to be a business owner or you want to be an agent. I didn't want to be an agent. So I built my team. I built my business around a team. So if you want to build your business around a team, you need more people so that if you lose 1 person and you lose 2 people, your entire operation doesn't halt. All right. Same thing is if you build your business around you want to go on a vacation and you're your highest producer, then you're playing behind the 8 ball. So you do yourself a favor by not pigeonholing, putting yourself in a box by getting just 2 employees, even though that's the minimum, or 4, whatever it is, because inevitably you're gonna lose some, but that doesn't mean that your entire production has to halt if you have enough people. So I would always err on the side of hire more people. Again, it's how people see it though. Oh, I don't have the money, and Kevin said it. You can't afford not to. And that's usually the feedback and the kind of coaching that I give them. If you're truly serious about growing, you're going to have to make that investment. You're going to have to. Otherwise, you're going to keep circling the wagons. You're going to be frustrated. And then you're going to have, again, the same thing I didn't want to do. You're going to have this producer who holds you hostage. You have to make a decision of what are you trying to accomplish? So.
I feel like
it's
most
tough sometimes.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. I say sometimes it's tough to get people to see it as an investment, not an expense, because it's definitely easier said than done.
That's the same thing with Kevin. I don't mean to interrupt you, but like you guys would see eye to eye on that completely because you're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And LaTasha's actually like I'm hoping you're writing all this down because some of the things she's saying, I'm like, I gotta say that. I gotta say it differently than how I normally explain it.
Well, I think when agents start, and if they don't have any maybe any prior business owner experience, they're thinking about years into it. And so they're imagining, this is my thought, is they're imagining themselves in the desk, right? And that they're surrounded by people. They're already there. And then they come in the morning and they check in on their people and they're good. And then they go to their kids' games. And then maybe they're gone for a long week. They're imagining freedom and they're imagining financially secure. And those are synonymous with having the right staff and the right amount. And if you're looking around and it's just you and one other in the office, you're going to have a real hard time being financially secure and have the freedom that they wanted, I would imagine, when they signed up to be an agency owner. Like, I think those were the big perks they were looking for.
Absolutely. But, those things have to be established, and I sometimes think that's what they miss. You have to establish those things first. Those things are absolutely very rewarding and you can do them, but you have to establish it first. You have to establish the accountability. You have to build the team. You can't just walk out on your investment that way. You have to put these things in place. And sometimes I think agents tend to think once their name's on the door, that's it. It just entitles them to now do these things. Yes and no. Yes and no. At what cost? So.
Right. Well, I bet a lot of agents, they look up to you and they see you and they're like, man, you got it going on. Like they see you today, but they didn't see you 7 months
Right.
before opening. Like none of that hard work. They're just looking at you today. And they're like, I want to be like LaTasha. Like, okay, but you're going to have to walk the road. Like
Yeah,
LaTasha didn't walk down I-75. Like she went through the hard road for sure. And it takes a lot of time and effort that most were like, ooh, well, if they really knew all that, maybe they wouldn't, you know, maybe
yeah,
they would back off and go, well, okay. But they just see you today and they see
yeah.
the success you have, but they don't realize what you went through to get there.
Yeah,
And
it's ongoing. It's definitely it's ongoing, and you have to, continue to develop staff as well, and that's hands on, So it's a process. It's definitely not as easy as some may think, but you know, it's a process.
so for the agents out there, um, what about one sales tip maybe you give them that you found in selling insurance? Like what sales tip do you like to install in your people? It could be a word track. It could be, a technique. It could be whatever. But what advice would you give them in selling more in the sales process?
It's all about it's crazy because there's two critical points that you have where you can reel in your customer, right? You got the 30, you got the opening and your closing.
Mhm.
Those are two pretty big
Yeah.
decision points right there. In my office, we open the line every call the same way. So nobody gets to do it their own way, right? You want to make it yours, but the effectiveness of it, like someone is whether it's an internet lead, because we use internet leads, so it looks like you or someone in your household requested a quote online. I have about 90% complete for you. I just need to verify some information, and you go right into it.
Yeah.
That's the way we open every internet lead,
That's
every
good. Just this.
everyone. Yeah. And then we have 5 things that they have to each check off before closing it. Like did you ask for the sale? Did you tell them that you're entitled to your money back if you don't buy it, because we can't take your money for a service we did not provide. So if you find something cheaper somewhere else, give us a call, you'll get a full refund. So there's certain things they have to go through before they close that call.
Yeah.
And I listen to the calls, and sometimes if there's an area opportunity for coaching, we're coaching. Otherwise, you know, you're just looking for those things that, okay, if somebody does come up something that's more effective, then that's something that we bring to the team. If it's more effective, let's hear it. If you want to try it a different way, that's absolutely okay. But let's try to implement it across the floor, across the board, so that everybody can be successful. So right now, that's how everybody opens the call the same way.
I'm hearing a lot of trainings going on in your office.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of agents would say, listening to calls is a great idea. I can understand where you can find the gold in that, the opportunities for training, but a lot of them would say, oh, well, I didn't get to it this week. So just curious if you set aside a certain time just so you know that you hit it. I mean, is it, once a week or something, you listen to a few calls? Because it can be time consuming, but there's
Yeah,
gold in there.
it can be time consuming. If I have more new people, I tend to listen in real time so that I can coach them, walk them through it while they're on the phone, because we have the whisper function. So
Yeah.
I tend to listen in real time. If they're more established, or they've been with me long enough now that I feel like they could, I may pick a day, Tuesday or Thursday or something like that, and listen to a few calls, jot down some notes, and then in the morning huddle, we may go over it. Sometimes I play calls in the morning huddle,
Yeah.
so people could see whether it was a good call or whatever it is. Hey, this is how so and so did the call. He did one call close, or he did a great job with this, so that they can hear it, so that
Right.
they can take notes. But I try and do it at least once a week. I used to do it more frequently than I do now. Used to do it probably 2 to 3 times a week. But my staff is pretty established, so I don't have to go
Yeah.
um, as frequently as I used to, but I still do it enough to let them know that I'm still watching. So
Right.
I've been on calls with LaTasha where you hear it in the background, the
Oh, yeah.
training, just, the positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
And, with sales leader personality. So you don't really like to be sugar coated. You want to know, how I can get better. But then a nurturer or an organizer personality, maybe your CSR team, you probably do want to lead with a compliment first,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and make sure they understand that.
But the key is just doing it. So many agents will say, I'd like to do it. I used to do it. But when you get in that habit, it's just those little pieces
Yeah,
that carry the momentum that build on your agency. Because we do it every week.
just like role playing.
We do it. I mean, every week we do 3 days a week where we'll listen to a call with our sales staff and, review it live. And I love that you said you have a morning huddle. So is that every day? How long does that last? What would you recommend to agents who don't do a morning huddle?
It's usually the longest it tends to go is 30 minutes, but it usually lasts about 15, 20 minutes. And so what it is every morning we start at 8:30. Everybody get together, we'll go through, okay, did everybody hit the quote goal? And if not, why? Did everybody hit the talk time goal? If not, why? The sales goal. If not, why? Is there something on your mind? Is there something you want to share? So that you don't bring the baggage to the phones, right? That's really the point of it. The customers don't want the baggage. So whatever is on your chest, let's get it off. Let's discuss. If you didn't hit to go yesterday, here's what you need to do today. Because it's daily, it's weekly, it's monthly. And so it's just an opportunity to real quick assess where we are and move on.
Right.
For the numbers, just so our viewers know, if you don't mind sharing, what is the expectation with talk time, number of calls, maybe policies written?
So the main goal is 2 to 4 sales a day, or 2,500 in premium, 15 quotes a day, talk time, at least 4 hours of talk time. The dials, I don't spend the calls, I don't spend as much time on because sometimes with internet leads, you just may have people on those days where people just don't pick up.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it gives me a gauge of people's activity. So if you don't have 15 quotes, if you don't have 4 hours of talk time and you haven't been dialing, then I need to understand what you've been doing with my time.
Yeah, right.
So it's
That's
a conversation piece.
It's the dials are last. I mean, the telling story, because you could have 4 great calls that last 1 hour each, and that's
Absolutely.
awesome. That's way better than no one wants to make 100. I want to have 4, but that's pretty unrealistic to only have 4. So talk time is number 1 in 4 hours. That's throwing some heat up there. Is there 4 hours it's almost like you're on the phone nonstop. It seems like 4 out of 8 hours is half the day, but
and you're challenging them to make conversation, get conversations going.
Absolutely.
Lead something. And that was a big thing for me starting off in sales.
Right.
I mean, even if there's a small chance of, selling them, it's just about getting the conversation, talking to them. Maybe they have a friend that could use your service. Who knows? But get them to know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can't sell anyone you're not talking to. So
100%.
Talk time is important.
Absolutely. So it's not just insurance. The reason we call it this, LaTasha, is we do like to get into a little bit of personal life in terms of, what does LaTasha do in her free time? And what does she do that keeps her going, whether it's family, friends, special hobbies? You got anything that you can share with us that we can find out more about you with?
Yeah, I'm a big family and friends person though. If I'm not, working, then I'm usually with my family and my friends. I have 2 nieces and a nephew, so I spend a lot of time with them. I like to travel. I like to travel a lot. So if I'm not traveling or with at work, then I'm with my family. I like to have I come from a big family though. My grandmother had 9 kids. It's like 75 grands and great grands and great great grands.
Wow. So Kevin's doing the combination right now. He's got the kids here at the studio, actually, in the background. You see Marissa.
You guys want
That's awesome.
Anybody brave over there? Oh, we got it. Come on, come say
hi. You got to take her?
Maybe.
Come say hi, guys.
This is Macy.
Hi, Macy. How are you?
And Marissa.
Camera's here.
Hey, Marissa.
Oh.
Beautiful young ladies.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks.
No, that's I'm glad they're here today. It's fun.
Yeah, and then we got my good friend Jack in the background, and then of course Tito as our producer.
Yeah,
who's been killing it. LaTasha, any hobbies that you have that you like
by the way,
do?
one quick shameless plug here, since you like to travel.
Yeah.
My wife is a travel agent. So your travel society. So she can help you out, hook you up on some travel.
Absolutely. I'll take her up on that as well.
Yeah.
We'll
I
get you
love to
guys.
travel.
We'll do a little introduction after this. You'll love
Please
her.
do that. That is certainly my guilty pleasure. I love to travel.
100%. Any other hobbies you have besides traveling? And when you do travel, where do you like to
Where
go?
do you
Because
go?
you're in
Yeah.
Florida, so you're a little spoiled. We're in Michigan.
Yeah, the last place I went to Barbados. I was in Barbados a couple months ago. I took my mom to Jamaica in July. So we've been all over places. The last place I went to was Jamaica, which was in July for my mom's birthday.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
But
great.
I like Europe though. I like Europe, but I'm kind of biased. I did live there for 2 years. So I
Right.
went back to London last year, which was great. Going to Italy in November. So yeah, I definitely like to travel.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's your next trip is Italy in November?
I think so. It's looking that way.
Okay, you might squeeze something in between, huh?
I would love to. I was looking at Costa Rica, believe it or
Oh,
not.
oh, yeah, we were just there in June. Me and the girls. Actually, we are on a mission trip there.
Awesome. How
Yeah,
was it? Did you guys have fun?
so awesome. Yeah, I mean, we built a home for somebody who didn't have a home, and
Wow.
it was super rewarding. So it was great. Costa Rica is beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I hear. So I was thinking about throwing a trip in between there. So
There you go.
That's a
Well,
good transition to our final question.
oh yeah,
Do you want to ask it or you want
yeah.
me to?
Okay, our final question we ask all of our guests is, what are you most grateful for?
wow, that's a loaded one.
Hmm.
Obviously you say
You don't have to list
it's-
one because then it might feel like you're leaving something out.
I obviously I would say I'm grateful for my family because when you leave and you go into this, you don't go on a journey by yourself. You know, you have to have a support system because it can become quite challenging.
Yeah.
And when you have a support system of not just your family, your friends. So I think outside of that, I am most grateful for the opportunity to see a reward that's directly tied to my efforts. Right. I I I got in, I got out what I put in. I know that, and I know that the things that we've done has also changed my support staff's life as well.
Yeah.
That's extremely rewarding. It feels good to know that they'd rather take and move their entire family to Jacksonville from Bradenton than to leave my agency.
Yeah.
They're part of my legacy. They're part of, and I hope that at some point they venture out with the same success that I had. But it's very rewarding and grateful for me to see that I played a small part in it. And so those kind of things that, you know, you don't get to see often. Everybody's surprised that they were moving, but it was like, man, there's no there's no way we wouldn't, so that's extremely rewarding. I was extremely grateful for that. That felt good.
That's great. Well, you're special and you should be really proud of what you're doing.
Thank you,
And
guys.
you're not only helping you and your family and your staff, but other agents that are looking up to you, you're pushing them and helping them grow, and they're trying to strive and do things like you're doing. So you're making a much bigger impact than I bet you even know. So thank you for what you do
Awesome. I appreciate that.
in the industry.
It was great
That's
agents
awesome.
that I learned from, though. So
Yeah.
And we wish you the best success. And we know you're going to kill it with your new location coming up.
Yeah.
thank you, guys. I appreciate it. This was
That's
fun.
great.
We'll have to stop by and come visit.
Please do. Please
Yeah.
do. Take you guys out to lunch.
Well,
Let's
LaTasha, thanks
Oh,
so
that'd be
much for
great.
joining us. I'm so glad that you and Kevin got to interact. You guys see so much eye to eye. It's crazy.
Yeah.
In business philosophy.
Right.
And Tito, thanks for recording. We're going to be signing off.
Thank you, guys, and hopefully I can meet you
I'm sure.
sometime in person, Kevin.
Oh, it sounds
We'll
You as
make-
well, Jeff.
Keep together at the same time, and now I get a face with the name. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys. You guys have a great day, okay?
All right, you too.
You have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.